The 2015 Polyglot Gathering is brought to you by italki. Become fluent in any language.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here at 9 o'clock after the concert yesterday evening. I really appreciate that. So I'm happy to be here and to begin with you the last day of our Polyglot Gathering. The title of my presentation is The Most Effective Way to Learn Languages. It's a really pretentious title, I know, but I knew that I was going to speak at 9 o'clock in the morning, so I had to choose an appropriate title to catch the attention of the audience. So I'm not really going to reveal. I had to narrow it down at least and say that I will tell you about what I think may be the most effective way to learn languages, basing on my own experience as a language learner and on my own experience as a language learning advisor at Freiburg University in Germany. So, we are polyglot, we would like to learn new languages. At the beginning, we're not really sure how we should proceed. So before we are sort of like that, well, I would like to learn languages, I love languages, but how should I proceed? We know that we want to be successful, that we want to learn that language. So in my talk, I will concentrate on the process, on the way leading us through language learning and making us, starting from Stan Laurel, a successful girl who has learned the language she wanted to learn. Okay. So, which factors are important for language learning? What is important when we want to learn a language? First of all, we should know which language. This may seem trivial, but we should know which language or which languages we want to learn. Например, ко мне пришла девушка, говорит, ну я хочу изучать иностранный язык. И говорю, да. Какой язык? Ну, я не знаю. Английский, может быть, интернациональный язык. Ну, испанский тоже интернациональный язык. В школе я изучал французский, сейчас хочу еще французский изучать. Что вы советуете? Я отвечаю, я не могу ничего вам советовать. Это вы должны подумать и принять решение. Это не мое решение, это ваше решение. That is, this student came to me and really didn't know which language she wanted to learn, and she asked me what I would recommend. So I answered, I cannot tell you which language you should learn, it's your own decision. Go and think about it. How? We'll see in a moment. So what is important for learning languages? To have a goal, of course. Also, we should find a way to reach this goal. That is, we should plan our way towards the goal and adopt a method. I regard methods as a sort of right track leading us possibly to our goal. And there is always the possibility to switch to another right track, but basically a method is something that leads us toward our goal. Of course, as you very well know, there are lots of methods. It's important, as Judith told us last year, to match the method and the goal we want to reach. You are referred to her presentation last year to see a number of practical examples to see how this may work in practice. So, lots of methods. Can you name some method?
Suggestopedical method?
Yes.
Conversational method?
Yes. Any other method?
The goalless method. The goalless method.
Yes. Any other method?
23 months.
Sorry?
23 months.
For instance?
Immersion?
Yes. Okay, so there are a lot of methods. How can I choose the right method for me? The most appropriate method for me. I have two possibilities basically. I can try out different methods, sort of randomly, and see if I find a method that is good for me. But I can also go the other way around and to be selected, to look selectively for the right method right from the start. This helps sparing energy and time, because okay, we need energy, we need time, and we have no energy and no time to waste. So how can we go this second way when selecting a method? We are sort of lion tamer, lions being methods, and we have to tame them and to find the right one or the right ones for us. So it's not the lions taking central stage, it's us. And I think it's the primary principle when you have to learn new languages and to look for a method is a very old principle, Gnosis auton, erkenne dich selbst, conoce a ti mismo, und so weiter, and so on. What does it mean, know thyself? What do I need to know about myself before selecting a method? Well, I need to know my character, how I am. Am I shy? Am I introverted? Am I extroverted? Am I a perfectionist? This is important because this will influence, of course, the way I will learn languages. I need to know my likes and dislikes, in particular as far as learning activities are concerned. So if you hate singing, you should not, you're better advised not to use a book based on learning languages through songs, because everything we do that we don't like doesn't support our motivation. And as we all already know, motivation is a central factor. We need to keep motivated to learn languages. It's sort of fuel giving us energy to go along our way when learning languages. Also, it may be useful to know our learning style. There are lots of tests in the internet where you can ascertain whether you're sort of auditory type, visual type, tactile type. This also may help you make a conscious choice when selecting a language method. Time. Time is also a central factor. Vino a verme un estudiante y me dijo, bueno, quiero aprender español en este semestre. ¿Vale? Le dijo, ¿cuánto tiempo tiene cada semana para aprender español? Bueno, dice, mi nivel es A2 y tengo 2-3 horas por semana y quiero llegar al nivel B2. Bueno, en un semestre hay 15 semanas, es decir, él quería llegar al nivel B2 en 30-40 horas. Y su nivel inicial era A2. y tuve que decirle, bueno, escuche, no sé si lo logrará, puede ser que usted es un genio, pero normalmente 30, 40 horas para llegar del nivel A2 al nivel B2 son demasiado pocas. So time is something really important because we have to match the time we have at our disposal with the goal we would like to reach. Place is also something we have to take into consideration because we should try to possibly learn in an environment which is comfortable for us. At your desk, on your couch, in your bed, you should try to establish a positive connection between the place you learn and language learning. And finally, people. You have to know whether you prefer learning alone or you like to connect. You have in the internet plenty of possibilities to connect, to take part in discussion forums, Facebook, and so on. You may also try to look for support during your language learning, support through other people who too are learning a language. For instance, I mention here the Add One challenge by Brian Kwong. We heard a talk about that yesterday or the day before yesterday. So this is something you need to know about yourself, and this is sort of a checklist helping you to select the right method. Of course, this requires some time before you get to know all this about yourself. It's not like that. You won't be a guru overnight, but you need some time to develop your introspective skills and look and ascertain what is good for you to get to know yourself. In this way, you have the chance to select among different methods the one or the ones which are good for you. This may, as I've already said, this may require some time, and you may also get puzzled. In this case, if you are experiencing difficulties, you may also go and see a language coach, a language learning advisor. He may help you disentangle the clue in your head and help you to get to know yourself. So this is a checklist, this is a roster. On the basis of this roster, you may then go on and select the method which is best for you. And why? Because you're now in a position to evaluate methods. On the basis of this checklist, you may ascertain if a method is good for you or not. In particular, you can answer those two questions: what can this method give me, and which goals may I reach through this method? Then you check your own goals and see if they correspond to the goals which you can reach through that method. So, there are very many methods, there are a lot of methods. If you are, if you are quite sort of interested only in reading a language, then you may select the grammar translation method and avoid methods like the mellow methods, which help you speak from day one. On the other side, the assimil methods helps you gain a passive knowledge of a language very quickly. So if your goal is to understand very quickly but not speaking immediately, you may select the assimil method. This checklist helps you find a way among the jungle, in the jungle of different methods. What is also important is that when you've chosen a method, you stick to it for at least 1 to 3 months before you give up. And during this period, it's fundamental that you give yourself regular feedback. You may use, for instance, a learning diary and write day by day what your impressions are, if you're happy with the method, and what your difficulties are. If you do it day by day or week by week, at the end you will have a clear picture. Am I satisfied with this method or not? When I'm doing language learning advising, I always recommend the students to use a learning diary. As I said, it can be a normal diary with white pages where you can write. It can also look like this, as a table. You have to, every time you learn, you have to say when you have learned, what you have done, why. You have to evaluate your learning session. Am I satisfied or not with that? And on this basis, you can plan the next steps. Of course, if you remark after, I don't know, 1 to 3 months that you are basically unsatisfied with a method, you may change, you may switch to another rate track, to another method. Ich zeige ein paar Beispiele, wie das in der Praxis aussieht. Diese Studentin zum Beispiel, sie konnte ganz gut sagen, was sie gemacht hatte, warum sie das gemacht hatte, aber sie hatte irgendwie Schwierigkeiten dabei zu sagen, wie ihre Arbeit war, sich selbst zu evaluieren. Das heißt, wenn sie dann zu mir gekommen ist, habe ich das angesprochen und gefragt, wo haben sie Probleme? Und wir haben das ein bisschen so miteinander diskutiert und dann hat sie dann auch diese Spalte dann weiter ausgefüllt. Umgekehrt hatte diese Studentin diese Spalte, wie war meine Arbeit, ganz gut ausgefüllt. Also man sieht, dass sie sich tatsächlich damit auseinandergesetzt hat, wie war meine Arbeit. Sie hat ihre Arbeit evaluiert, aber sie war nicht so sicher, warum sie gewisse Sachen macht. Das war auch ein Thema beim Beratungsgespräch. Natürlich gibt es auch wunderbare Beispiele, wo der Sprachlernberater einfach sagt, Respekt. Diese Studentin hatte wirklich alles ausgefüllt, jede Sitzung in 3 Teile oder 2 Teile unterteilt und für jeden Teil einfach geschrieben, was sie gemacht hatte, warum sie das gemacht hatte sich selbst evaluiert und hatte dann die nächsten Schritte geplant. Das ist die berühmte deutsche Disziplin. Okay, so there are several types of students. Some of them experience difficulties when trying to fill in such a table. Others are more disciplined, or they've gained more introspective skills, so that they have no problems with that. Okay, so to summarize, what is the most effective way to learn languages according to me? You have to know yourself, and on this basis to be able to select the right rate track, the right method, which helps you reach the goal you've set yourself. Of course, this requires disciplines. You need to build language learning habits. We've heard at least 2 talks about that by Claudio and by Michal. Still, you may be a lazy you may be lazy, so you are referred to Česko Reale. If you are a lazy polyglot, you may turn to him for advice and ask him how you can be a polyglot, although you are basically lazy. Thank you. Oh, this was very quick.
Which methods do you use yourself?
Well, I cannot say I really use a method. My character is, well, I'm sort of quite introverted and I cannot speak from day one. So I like to have a global view of a language. The first thing I would do, but that's me again, and each learner is different, I would take a grammar in order to get an overview of the structure of the language. But that means, as I told, you have to know yourself. If you're like extroverted and if your goal is to, I don't know, to spend a week in a country, then you have only to learn some basic sentences, then you may adopt another method and not starting going through the whole grammar book.
Actually, I'd just like to add that I think this is very important. You have to know the goal, and if your goal is just traveling for 2 weeks, you definitely don't have to get into a proper method like Assimil, although I'm going to present Assimil today in the afternoon, so thank you for mentioning it, and everybody is welcome to join. But yeah, thank you for this. And I think from my personal experience, I'm always using several courses, several books. I try to start with listening a lot of music from that particular country or language. I try to, if possible, watch movies and just try to immerse myself into the culture of that particular language.
That's very important. Not only the language, but also getting in touch with the culture. Still, you like, I assume you like music, you like listening to music. Maybe there are some people that do not like music, so they are best advised not to use these methods in order to keep motivated.
Hello, from my experience, a lot of methods which I've used in the past for language learning, as a tutor of Scottish Gaelic, what I find crucially important is that a lot of time is spent, first of all, in listening to the language and going through the alphabet, because what I find with a lot of courses is they rush through the alphabet and go straight into grammar, whereas being understood, in order to be understood, you need to get the sounds right, and I often find that courses don't spend enough time, which is okay if you have two languages which use very similar sound systems, but for example, if the palette of different sounds that exist in the language are quite different, then I really believe that a lot of time and effort has to be put first into getting the pronunciation right and listening to how the language is supposed to sound. And that's why I think listening to music and generally listening to radio and stuff like that is very important before jumping into the language, because you can spend many hours learning a language, but like the actor was saying yesterday, unless you're understood, it's going to be a lot of effort for how you're going to be able to use it in a practical sense.
Yes, of course, you're right. There are really lots of activities, several different methods, and of course, what I mean is you have to know yourself, you have to know how you can keep motivated, and after you reach sort of a confidence with the language, using the method you find most at ease with, you may try to enter this comfort zone. You may try to go beyond your comfort zone and look for activities that maybe do not attract you, but that still can be useful to get into that language. So, as you told, listening is very important. Of course, listening is very important. But if it's sort of a learning activity that you don't like, it shouldn't force you to do that right at the beginning, because you won't develop a good connection between you and the language you're learning. You will experience frustration, and this should be possibly avoided, in particular at the beginning. I worked in a university, so I work with students who have a lot of things to do, and it's important. What I always tell them: it's important that you select something that you like, because otherwise you will give it up. You have so many things to do, and language learning is never the primary, the main task for them. So that's why I advise them to select learning activities on methods that keep them motivated.
Okay, for me it's the written language which is the basis for everything. And that means that I start out learning the grammar by choosing which part of the grammar I absolutely have to learn right now. Then I use word lists to learn a couple of tens of thousands, maybe 20,000 words before I've even said a word. And then I read a lot. I use scientific articles because they have got a lot of international language. They're not so too expressive. That means they are easy to understand, contrary to everything people normally put up in the evaluation schemes. Normally they say the most difficult thing is to make a scientific article. No, the most difficult thing in language is to understand a teenager in a bus. And when I then have to speak the language, I have to have a goal. I have to have a challenge. And that means that I have to either travel somewhere, or I have to put up to speak about something in a language which I don't really speak well, because otherwise I wouldn't bother about learning how to speak it. And what I do there is just to think through what I wanted to say before I say anything. And if that doesn't function, then it goes as wrong as it has done with my Esperanto, or it can function as well as it did with my Catalan, because there I can read a lot of interesting things, but I don't really make an effort to speak before I'm sure I can understand what people are answering. And that comes far after I've read the first couple of 100 books about science.
Okay, I understand you very well when you say it's easier to write a scientific article in a language than to understand a teenager. This is what I experienced too. Still, I'm sure that there are other people here who think that it's easier to understand a teenager in a bar than writing a scientific article.
I'm a teenager and I can't understand my own language.
I know it's not about writing the scientific article. I don't know, in my experience with English, I had this problem that everyday language, we just weren't taught it at the university and at school, so it's a lack you have. You understand political articles or something like that, but that part is missing. So in my opinion, like my experience was like this. I just was talking with English or American people and really simple words, I just didn't get it. So it's strange. It depends on the area you study.
Of course. You maybe you felt frustrated because you didn't understand much of what they were saying. Well, that doesn't mean that you are not a good learner. That you've that of course that means that the focus you chose, or the focus that was chosen for you, because what I talked about is about autonomous language learning. If you are in a course, you cannot make a choice. There is someone else choosing the rate track, the method for you, and maybe it's not the right method for you, but you don't. You're not aware of that, and you simply feel frustrated. Of course.
I have a couple of comments. One thing I'm interested in is how many speakers have referred to pronunciation as being crucial, and that you need to spend a lot of time at the beginning of a class or beginning of your study on the pronunciation. I still believe that, and I still teach that way. However, in the United States, that is not the current thinking, because after Stephen Krashen, there's been a great sense that it's sort of not a good idea to be emphasizing pronunciation so much at the beginning until people have learned to listen to the language and hear the language a lot, as we've been saying here too. But that actually it's much more important to focus on pronunciation later on. Now, what I like about the Pimsleur method is that at the beginning, Pimsleur gives you indications, general ways of pronouncing, and then later on you come back and get more specific. Once your ear's been attuned better, then you can focus more on the specifics. So I think there is some virtue in that, trying to do as much as you can for correct pronunciation at the beginning, knowing some people don't have a very good ear, and it'll take them longer. They'll need to be exposed a lot more in order for them to be able to hear the distinctions, and working a lot on the phonetics at the beginning may be very frustrating to those people. So as you're saying, it's an individual matter. If it's something that you enjoy working with, then do spend as much time as you can getting it right so you don't have to correct mistakes later on, as has also been said. I'd like to mention just one method that I use in teaching in classes that I also recommend to students, and they found very effective. In my Spanish classes, I use a particular film, Tango by Carlos Saura. And the reason for using the film is that it has English subtitles you can turn on, and also Spanish subtitles, which match the dialogue perfectly. And so I'm able to use that in order to match the sound and the symbols, and also so students are feeling that they're understanding. But the main point is I teach grammar only through exercises based on the film, and so my text is the film, and they learn all the grammar from the film. And the advantage of doing this in a class is that by the end of the class I'm able to have the students to my home, and we have a home theatre, and so they can see it on a big screen, and they can listen through to the film and understand the whole film directly. And that's a wonderful motivator, because they realize, oh, now I understand authentic language. And it's because we've been working with it for weeks and weeks and weeks. But once I've shown them how to do that, then they realize they have a tool as to how to use film to learn another language. And so find a film where the subtitles match the dialogue, which may be difficult because many films are not that way. The subtitles are much shorter than the dialogue, or they're done by a different team of people, so it's quite different. But the one thing I find is that students really understand how to learn, and don't just say, go and watch films. Yes, that's good, and you can, but there are ways of purposefully watching films to get you to the point where you're really understanding directly without any translation or anything, but it just takes work. And so you need to go through maybe and listen to the film, watch the English or whatever your native language is, subtitles, and then you go through and then you start watching the subtitles in the language you're learning, matching them to the sound, and then eventually you turn off the subtitles, which of course I do when we have our final party where they're enjoying Spanish food, and then they're just enjoying the film as a film. And of course they're learning an awful lot of culture, because you can't make a film that doesn't have authentic culture, otherwise nobody would watch the film. It would just seem out of place. And so it's important to have materials that are not made up for the learner, but which are from the culture, and then you bring the students to the culture. So just a couple of comments on that.
No, thank you very much, because I think you're doing good work. You're giving your students a positive impulse, and you're giving them an instrument. So you're teaching them how they can work with films. It's as you say, it's not saying go and watch films. You give them an example how can they work with a film, so they learn sort of a technique. How can they work with that, and then apply this technique to another language or to other films in the same language. And about phonetics, well, that's not again. It's not everybody's matter. Me too. When I start learning a new language, I would like to know how it sounds, how I have to pronounce or to read it, because I hate reading a language without knowing how it sounds. This was also a topic in Česko's talk yesterday about being a lazy polyglot. He always starts with the phonetics. Still, this is us. Maybe you're different. Maybe you hate phonetics. So it's really up to you.
Hi, so it seems like whenever anyone talks about methods for learning languages, they're always focused on the beginning stages of learning a language, but the thing that's the most difficult for me is when I get to the intermediate or upper intermediate level, and then I want to push through to an advanced stage, because I always feel like I progress really quickly through the beginning stages, but then when I get to the intermediate or upper intermediate level, that's when I feel like I'm starting to plateau, and it's more difficult to stay motivated unless I'm, really in love with this particular language. So I'm just wondering if you have any opinions or advice for that stage of language learning in particular.
Okay, this was a topic too in Luca Lampariello's talk last year. You can find it on YouTube, in our YouTube channel, the YouTube channel of the Polyglot Gathering. Well, you're right. It's not that easy to progress when you're already reached an advanced level. In my experience, well, I haven't had that many students being really advanced. As for myself, I can tell you what I do is really to plunge, to go deep into the language, reading everything I can, watching movies possibly without subtitles, possibly not only one time but more time to get accustomed to the language to each the way of speaking of each character. Listening to music too, because I love music, and sort of to go through a complete immersion. And I always know there will be something I don't understand. There will be whole realms of I don't know vocabulary or things like that, which I won't master because I'm not focused on them. So on the one side, immersion. On the other side, focus on what your interests are. Why you need that language? I don't know. I'm a linguist, so if I have to, I don't know, write an article in Russian, then I will start reading other scientific articles in Russian. to learn the scientific terminology, and on this basis I can write myself an article in Russian. So it's two different ways. First way, get as immersed as you can in that language, and on the other side, focus on what your needs or your interests are, because in my opinion, you cannot reach a whole knowledge, a complete knowledge of the whole language. Think about your own native language. Do you know every every word which is in dictionary, the specific terminology of each micro language? Maybe yes. So I admire you, but I noticed in my native languages I have blanks that need to be filled. If I don't know, if I had to translate a very practical example. I'm now working for a firm which well, I've never told about that in English. Sort of press reviews for private clients, private customers, and I have to read newspapers in Italian, look for appropriate articles, and then summarize relevant articles in German or in English. And most clients come from the energy sector. Well, I didn't know anything about energy, about power plants, and so on. And in this sense, either in German or in English. So what I did is to read a lot of articles about that, so that I can build for myself a terminology which I can use when I have to summarize the article. That's an example from my personal experience. I think we have time for one question. One.
I just wanted to add regarding immersion. You talked about movies, but now it's very popular. You know, on the internet, every time you have a TV series, there are many series that have a whole community around them of fans that around the actors, around the series, that comment on the series and watch the series together. I do it with Spanish a lot. I mean, I follow certain series and the comments on Twitter, and this is something you can. This is one method I use, just to connect to the community, and yeah.
So very good, because you get the feeling that you are in a community, and this I think is a good way to keep motivated. You're not alone, and you have a passion. You share a passion with them. And this is a way to stay motivated and to be eager to learn more about the language, so that you can interact with them.
Yeah, many times you're not the only non-native speaker. There are people
That's
who are learning the same language and have the same position as you. That they don't speak perfectly the language, and yeah.
This helps making the shame barrier lower. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I think I thank you for being here, and I'm giving another talk at 10 o'clock about Milanese, an Italian dialect, in room 3. So if you want to be there, you're welcome. If not, thank you for being here.